Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, wherever you guys are in the world. Michael back at you guys with another episode of Military to Civilian uh, Road March, as we call it. You know, our last road march from the military to civilian world. We got my brother Robert here today. How you doing, Rob?
Hey, good. How about yourself?
Not bad, bro. Thanks for asking. Appreciate you being here. So, if you don't mind, for the listeners, if you can you walk us through what made you join the military? What branch of service did you serve in, and sort of bring us up to the time that you started thinking about separating? And thanks for being here, bro.
Yep. Yeah. Well, joining the military, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Graduating high school, I didn't really think that I had anything really going for me. Of course, me and my wife, we were married in our senior year in high school. And after my brother was killed in Iraq in 2005, I immediately had to join. At least I felt like I did. So as soon as I turned 18, I was off. I didn't really care what I did as far as job wise goes. MOS, it was just I took the highest bonus at the time, to be honest with you, and it was
Okay.
60,000 at the time. So of course,
60?
60,000.
Damn, dude.
It was a 13 Delta field artillery specialist.
Okay.
Um, so joined. First station was in Korea, um, and then went to Fort Carson. Stayed at Fort Carson for quite a minute. Fort Sill, and then back to Fort Carson, Korea, and then back to Fort Carson. Yeah.
Couldn't get out of Carson, man. Hey, I'm sorry to hear about your brother, man. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. And it's pretty honorable what you did to serve your country, serve your brother, your family. So respect for that, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so couldn't get out of Carson. I ended up there for like 11 months. Colorado is pretty nice. I don't know what you think of it being there for so long, but you know how was your time there spent? All good or?
No, it was all good.
That's cool.
I mean, just like I think with any soldier, any military service member at the time, you hate it. You want to get out.
Yeah.
And once you leave it, and you're like, man, I want to get back in. I got to get back there, and same people, but it's hard to replicate those feelings.
Yeah, most definitely. So you end up how when did you know that you were ready to get out of the military? What led you to, your transition out?
So I wasn't ready at all.
Okay.
I think just like a couple of individuals that were in my same situation, there was a bunch of medical conditions from me, as far as being injured in combat a couple years earlier. I tried to push through it, try to push through the pain. I was promoted. I was getting promoted. And then it wasn't until I was in Korea this last time where the Army kind of said, we don't have the resources here for you anymore.
Hmm.
So we're going to send you to the soldier recovery unit back at Fort Carson.
Okay.
Once I got there, I didn't actually start the IDES process of medically med boarding until I would say probably 9 months in. So during that whole time frame, I was going to appointments, trying to get better. I didn't have a job. I was actually listed as a surplus NCO on the books. And then it was just one day, our PCM had asked me, "Are you ready for a medical board? Because I'm going to put you in for one, with a couple of different claims." And it took me a couple of days, and I would say by the time I had made my decision, it was already made for me.
Hmm.
PCM had put in for the medical board. I had received messages that I had VA appointments and all this stuff. So it was definitely thrown on me last minute, without my final judgment, without my final call.
Okay.
I was planning to do as long as possible within the service, but of course things change.
Right. So when you got to Korea, you weren't even really thinking about like getting out, and then you went through what you went through, and they sent you back to Carson to get you the treatment and the care and everything that you need because they don't have like a warrior transition battalion in Korea, probably, right?
Yes, yeah. I know with all the funding and all that stuff, they got rid of most of the WTUs, what they used to be called. Now they're
Okay.
called
Yeah, I remember
soldier
that.
recovery, soldier recovery units. So they didn't have the TBI clinic that I was needed for myself. So they said they asked me for my location
Okay.
that I wanted to go to for the SRU, um, and all of them. I mean, Carson probably was the best one for me, just because one, it was something that I knew, um, and I knew that there was support there as far as the different agencies goes. People that I knew that were there had retired, sergeant majors, first sergeants, and all that stuff. So I knew all those resources were going to be there. I know that they're at other locations, but I just knew myself personally for Carson a little bit better. So I chose that one.
So to relive, like to bring up your past a little bit, you said you had some injuries and stuff like that happen in combat. We don't have to go into detail on that, but I'm just curious to see what that looked like when you like what that whole protocol looked like when you did have that happen. Like, did you get stuff documented? I'm sure you did, or like, did you sort of just try to drive on and push forward and just keep going with the mission at hand, or did you like seek treatment, or was that something that you did while you were in, or what was your outlook on that?
So at the time, I didn't know any better. I was a private.
Okay.
Um, I went and did. I stayed about 2 months in Bagram, in Afghanistan, where I did some type of rehabilitation, able to kind of get my equilibrium back, um, and just to kind of process like speech therapy, things like that.
Okay.
Uh, but it wasn't. I mean, after those 2 months, our brigade was getting back to rotate back to Fort Carson. So I stayed there as long as I think as long as I needed to before the brigade went back. Um, and then once I got back to Fort Carson, yes, I did seek treatment, but it was still kind of in that era of that mindset of I don't want to say it's negative, but
Nah, dude, I know what you mean though.
if you wanted to get promoted to at least in an NCO, you didn't really want to seek any type of treatment. Yes, it was acceptable, but it was just like, do we really need you as an NCO if you're going to behavioral health and you have all these appointments that you have to attend? Is it worth it? And
Right.
that's for me. That's why I just kept pushing. I can deal with the pain. The mental issue at the time wasn't an issue to me. It
Right.
wasn't until years later, of course, where the physical aspect I was getting more developing, but my mental state, that's where it started to kind of take its toll throughout the years. And I think that's kind of definitely what made me a little bit more in tune of, yes, I think I'm done with the military.
When like the mental health portion kind of brought to light and like sort of blew up.
Yes. Yeah.
Was that in Korea when that happened?
It had slowly been happening throughout the years, but I think when I went, it definitely um, slingshot to when I went to Korea, and it was during the COVID kind of height in Korea, and I actually spent 66 days in quarantine
Wow.
because, and once you get to Korea, if somebody on your floor tests positive, doesn't matter, it have to be you or somebody in your room, everybody was quarantined on that floor. So I ended up doing a total of 66 days, and we were senior
What'd
and
that look like? What'd that look like?
uh,
Like,
worse. Yeah, it was the worst because I mean, you're by yourself. So we were considered senior NCOs. So we got our own room to ourselves, 2 meals a day. and but I was on the 10th floor, so the CQ was having to bring food up all the way up. So by the time it got to the 10th floor, I mean, it was cold, it was gross.
Man,
Yeah.
on top of being, it was army food,
Yeah.
like military food.
Eating
That's
that
even worse. That's
again.
even worse in the field, man. At least in the field, you're gonna get it hot. Yeah, I've heard. I was contracting during COVID, but I heard like stories like that of Korea, like the lockdown that you guys had to go through when people would report. Because I had a job offer to go to Japan, but they're like same thing. You can't bring your family. You got to quarantine like all these days, and then like you said, if someone tests positive, then you got to pretty much start over. So obviously that wasn't probably good for your mental health. Did you have internet and stuff like that at least to get through, or not really?
It was spotty at best,
Wow.
because I mean, there was a total of 15 floors, and I was on the 10th. So internet was extremely shoddy, slow, couldn't stream anything. I could talk to my family, but it was like during the early mornings of their time. Um, so it was difficult, and I think that's where my downfall ultimately was.
What'd that look like? What'd that look like for you?
Mentally, it was rough. Um, I would say it was my breakdown. Um, I didn't want to be there anymore. Of course, who wants to go to Korea in the first place? But
Yeah.
um, I was supposed to go to Camp Hovey, or Camp Casey at the time. But then once I started to kind of realize myself that I don't think I'm in a right spot to probably end up taking a first sergeant position and being some type of command, I was like, I'm not mentally prepared for it, especially in Korea. So I made some phone calls and ended up being stationed in Camp Humphreys with the Second Infantry Divardi out there, and the command team was aware of my situations mentally, and they just kind of let me do my own thing. And that helped me out tremendously. The sergeant major and the colonel that were out there, man, they helped me out. Even to this day, they've been reaching out to me, making sure that I'm good. My family's good to go. Um, and then, of course, being artillery, it's a very small community, so everybody reaches out, making sure that I'm doing good mentally, physically, and stuff like that.
Okay. Hey, that's awesome to hear, man. You gotta have that support system, man. And they just show that the sergeant major and the colonel were great leaders just to keep doing that, to keep checking. So that's awesome to hear. Were they the ones that helped you to get back to Carson?
Yes. So to be put into the SRU, it's not a small process. Very lengthy. Um, Everybody has to approve it from the lowest level, what we call battery company commanders, all the way up to, at the time, the CG had to approve of my going to the SRU. And then at the same time, it had to be approved of a second PCS within the same fiscal year. So I had to get a couple of different waivers.
Okay.
And then my DROS date too. It was, I mean, months away. So I had to get a waiver for that as well. So it did take me probably about two months from the process for when it started, from when I got put in to be initiated to go to the SRU until I was actually on ground in Fort Carson. It was about 2 months.
That's not that bad. So you probably had enough time to unpack and then get everything packed up again, and then
Yep.
you're on the road back to Carson. How was it to go to that unit at Carson? Was it pretty good once you got there and you got settled in and they had everything sorted out for you?
Yes. Everybody was extremely helpful at the SRU because that's their only job there,
Okay.
is the cadre that are there. And it's a mix of different MOSs as well. So when you get there, you're assigned a squad leader. So even though, E7 promotable, I had a staff sergeant that I had to report to, which I mean it's fine with. I got accountability. We all understand that. Um, but it was somebody there. I'm saying it in a derogatory term, but holding your hand through the entire process.
Right.
I know it might sound kind of childish, but honestly, it helped me out so much. And I know that there are so many people at the SRU that have gone through, is still there, multiple different senior enlisted senior officers that are there. And, you have young NCOs that are helping them out, getting them to making sure that you're going to your appointments. Because that's all you got to do at the SRU is just take care of you. And that's definitely what I needed. And now I think, man, I'm ready to get back out there, get back to the gun line. But I know it's probably not the right decision. But
So, how long can someone stay in the SRU for? Do you know, or does it just case by case scenario? Is it like to help people get out of the military, or is it help to people get in, like in there, and then rehab them, or is it pretty much for everyone that's getting a med board or retiring? Or
yes, so I kind of have my own opinion about the SRU and why it's there. Of course, black and white, it tells us to either one, to get onto the veteran status, or two, to get back to the actual, fighting force, the generating force.
right.
But of course, we have those little couple people who try to skate by the system, and it pisses me off just so much. But anyways, once I got there, you kind of have a choice. You got to make that choice of if you want to go to the veteran track, or do you want to get back and get back to the gun line.
Okay.
And then even if you want to get back to the line, you don't have to go back and do your job. You can be assigned as, I don't know if anybody recalls what BMM, bar manpower, is. Being stationed at the gate, doing gate guard, KP, things like that. They probably don't do that anymore, but
No.
you can do those things and to finish out your 20, but you have to be close to it, close to your 20 years. You can't be 7 years in and go pull KP for the next decade.
13 years. Hey, I don't even know if anyone can make that challenge, man. That'd be back in the old. I mean, I joined 2007, but I know before, like, KP duty was like the real thing. You probably know, like, them people were like having them peel potatoes, cup, like, dude, they really weren't doing that. And I was a cook, so I know, like, we got KP sometimes when we went to the field, but they'd help with dishes or stuff like that. But not like the old times, man. So I don't. Things have changed. So.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't sent anybody on a KP. I was waiting for it. Like, as a I was just like, I know a perfect person who's going to do it.
You should have volunteered him, man. You just send him out there, man.
Yeah, but like, KP, man. Even in Afghanistan, like, because we didn't have cooks or anything like that,
Okay.
KBR or anything. It was just somebody that they volunteered. Hey, you're our cook.
Okay.
And then we pulled KP, just washing dishes, prepping, making sure, like the soda, not the machine, but
the fridge is stocked up. Yeah, it's a lot. Once you do it, it's a lot that goes into it, man. People have a new respect for food service after that. I feel like a lot of people talk crap about the cooks, death within Army cooks, all this, but dude, that's an unforgiving job, man. Then when you go to the field, or like you're out in the middle of nowhere, you got to make it happen, dude. Like, you didn't have anybody. I just talked to Joe. He was saying he was eating MREs for like 24 months out of like 3 years. I'm like, dude, that's, yeah. I mean, you're in the suck of it. So you're probably just happy to get hot chow, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't care. Like, yo, just give me something hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So what track did you think you were going to go to? Were you think you're going to go back to the gun line? Like you said, you really thought that? Or did you think like, yo, I'm just going to get out of here?
No, my first initial thought was I'm going to get better and I'm going to get back to the gun line.
Okay.
That was my first initial thought, but I had a bunch of kind of senior individuals kind of behind me, um, telling me, "Hey, you've done enough. Like, I think you ought to call it quits." And I think it was just my stubbornness who, in the very beginning, where I was like, "No, I'm going to keep going. Um, I got to get back out there, running, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 3 to 5 miles out there at Carson, just trying to get back." But mentally, I just wasn't in it anymore. And I think that's when it kind of clicked, when one day I was just, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was an extremely difficult decision. And to realize it, that I was done with the military in general. I didn't want to go pull KP or gate guard or anything like that. I didn't want to have any responsibilities anymore. I was just kind of done.
What was the hardest part for you to swallow that?
Um, I think that we all try to mimic that same atmosphere environment that we were at in the highest point of our career, most of the time. And for me, no exception, was especially deployed. I mean, even now, up until even a couple months ago, I'm like, man, uh, if they asked me right now to go back to Afghanistan, I would
Hmm.
take it in a heartbeat. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, yes, because I'm trying to mimic that same environment that I had. And I do know for a fact that if I did go, like right now, if I went tomorrow, I would not have that same feelings that I did of being close to other individuals, close to other soldiers, peers, and subordinates that I did have, 10 years ago. So I think once I realized that, it was a little bit more easier for me. Still difficult, but it made it a little bit easier, decision wise, of, hey, I need to continue on with the veteran track.
Okay. And so once you made that decision and got over that hump, what the veteran track look like for you? You just started. Did you have to talk to like your squad leader and say, I'm gonna go the veteran track, and then they get you in for like a MEB board, or how'd that go?
So your squad leader is just somebody there for accountability. They don't
Okay.
really have any say or anything, but you have your PCM who you meet with at least once you're there every 2 weeks. So you have an appointment with your PCM, your nurse case manager, social worker, and a transition coordinator, whether you're on the veterans track or getting back to the line. You have to meet with those individuals at least once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Um, and then after a couple of months, like I said, of kind of realizing, I'm done. I talked to my nurse case manager, social worker, PCM, and they all kind of agreed that, hey, this is probably the best bet for you, uh, to continue with the MEB process.
Okay.
Um, Once it started, I would say it took maybe about a week, and I started getting VA appointments. Um, a lot of them were unbeknownst to me, that I had no idea of when they were. They just kind of popped up
Okay.
in an email. Usually the first sergeant will get them, and then they'll put them out to the squad leaders to say, hey, this person has a VA appointment in Denver or Colorado Springs or something like that.
Okay. And then so once you got over that hump, you just started getting all your appointments, and that was all for like your disabilities and stuff like that, for CMP exam, and just get all your claims rolling pretty much.
Yes. So I had no idea. Like, if you were to tell me like the CMP exams like a couple months ago,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any idea what you were talking about.
Right.
I think, to me, being a senior NCO, not knowing what that process looks like, to me, it was almost nerve-wracking for to see a private going through the same thing. If I don't know, and I have, you know, 17 years in now, and they only have a couple months, it's got to be terrifying for them.
Yeah, man. Seriously, dude. I had 8 years, and I didn't even know I had a V. They just told me I had a VA appointment scheduled, and I didn't even go to it because I had no one checking me, man. I had nobody say, hey, make sure you go do that scene, and nor did I know, because at the end of the day, it all's going to fall on ourselves. You know what I mean? Because really, it's up to us to do it. But you're right, though. Like, it's kind of crazy to put it in perspective, because think about you being a senior NCO, or anybody being a senior NCO or officer and having all those soldiers that you're charged with underneath you, man. They might get out of the military before you, and it's like we're not really even there as leaders to kind of help them out unless we know it ourselves. So it is kind of crazy when you put it in perspective like that, just how much of a gap there is, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But
And I think that's was like what I was saying, like the sergeant major and the colonel that I had in Korea. I can probably say that they don't know the process either, and I think that's why they kind of just left me alone. Hey, you take care of you. Accountability, yes, of course. We'll make sure you're good to go, and still alive, of course. But you need to take care of you to see if you wanted to take care. And go down the veteran track or get back to the gun line, and make that decision yourself. So
right.
having that leadership that I had at that time, it was the best case scenario. And I know a lot of the times that's not what happens, because I've heard stories when I was in the SRU where command teams weren't allowing that, or they weren't allowing them to go to TAP or SFL or anything like that.
Yeah, more worried about the mission at hand or going to the. I mean, Carson, they love to go to the field there, man. Nonstop, Pinion Canyon, do this, do that. I mean, we were doing it up until almost like the last month before I got out of the Army. So, yeah, man, they're ruthless, because they're worried about the mission keeping it going, and their NCOERs and their OERs and the company's troop to task or whatever. They're all worried about what. But guess what? No matter who gets out, even if a general gets out right now, even when General Petraeus got out, whoever, they're still going to have someone come and fill that role, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So they're always going to have someone come behind you. But you're right. You got to take care of yourself and just do it, man. You can't put that off, because like, what if you would have never got to those VA appointments? Who knows what would be happening now? Like, those probably helped you out a lot, right? After you got all that stuff taken care of, were you set up for success afterwards?
Yes, definitely set up for success from the whole VA process. I know we've all heard kind of nightmare stories about the VA process, but I'm going to be honest, my experience was nothing but positive as far as the VA goes.
Okay.
And that was the one that was down in the Colorado Springs area, where people, to not make a joke about it, but I did research like a day prior, and everybody's like, okay, well, when you go in, start limping, do the
Yeah,
limp.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, when I first got into the VA center, it completely like spaced. I didn't think about, okay, well, I gotta start limping, like my back hurts now and things like that. I completely forgot about it. And when I got called back, I told the doctor about that. I was just like, look, I'm not here to, sugarcoat anything. Here's what's actually wrong with me. And then they looked at all my medical files, and they were like, yeah, no, there's a documentation for the past decade of these treatments and all this. So you're definitely going to be set up for success. And I had nothing but the best people from the VA and from the Soldier Recovery Unit down in Fort Carson.
Hey, shout out to them at the unit and at the VA, because you're right, man. A lot of people at the VA, they're there to help. You know, some of them are veterans and some of them aren't, but they're still there to help. A lot of people get a sour taste for the VA in their mouth, and that's their excuse to put treatment or their CMP or whatever case may be. That's why they put it off because they just had a bad taste. You know what I mean? But that might not always be the case. So props to you for doing that and for getting the treatment, and getting everything documented because so many soldiers just talk about stuff that never even got documented. You know what I mean? And if you were to get out and you were to go to those VA appointments and get looked at, you don't have the documentation. They would have said, well, hey, Robert, we don't have nothing here to show that for the last 10 years. Have you ever gone to sick call? Have you ever seen a provider? And you're like, well, no, I didn't. I just didn't think I'd be good. And it's like, how can you prove it? They might still be able to, but it's going to be a lot harder. Right.
Yeah, definitely. And then especially, I think just recently they switched over medical like databases as well.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I was having to, and then, I joined in 2007 too. So you had to go through like 2 different old databases to look for records to show like, hey, this was something I had, back in 2008 or 2009 that I was seen for. And I had the SRU. I mean, it was them who found everything for me. Nurse case manager worked to get all that information. And I can't think about how those who do it without the SRU. I think that definitely probably would add more stress onto an individual that's, one, trying to get better, and 2, trying to get out at the same time, trying to find employment, and all that stuff. That's got to be a huge burden. And I would look to help out anybody as much as possible going through the transition phase. Whatever you need, I'm definitely here to help you out as much as I can.
I appreciate you putting yourself out there for that because it seems like at that unit, they have pretty much the full spectrum. They got people as soon as you get there, they have everyone in place, which they should. I mean, I remember the WTU back in the day, it was sort of something like that because they had it at Fort Campbell, Carson. So you see people there. But I mean, it seems like that's a great program. They just had everything. They had a caseworker, you got a PMC, you got nurse, you got this, you got everyone there to help you. And when you get out on the regular side, I mean, if you're NCO, man, you just go do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you're a senior NCO, you might have done an executive level task because I talked to a couple like sergeant majors, and they said that they had like executive level tasks, which I didn't even know about. But it seems like all this stuff is hit or miss, or check the box, go get the signature here, do your resume writing. But it's just like, I guess it always could be better. But what would you say? Something like, I'm sure you've had friends get out of the military the regular way, not in like a unit like you did. What's the biggest thing that's missing from the other side, or things?
There are so many resources out there that just aren't put out to the lowest level. For example, right before I left Fort Carson, I was doing an internship up there with the EEO office.
Okay.
And there was another intern there, and he was getting out. He was regular retirement. And a lot of the processes he wasn't aware of. He was getting out probably about the same time that I was. The resume writing, one, he didn't know like there were so many. The USO helps you out, ACS, the Mount Carmel helps you out. All these different places can help you out with a resume. But I would always see him coming into the office, and he's plugging away at his resume. He's asking me, how does this sound? And I was just like, man, why don't you just take it to the USO and like have them look over it? Because these people, I mean, it's their job and they have experience in it. They know what works and what doesn't work. And he was like, honestly, I had no idea that the USO or the ACS helps write resumes. And then when I was kind of researching around the information, it's out there, but you have to go and look for it almost. How I found the resume writings was actually just through the MWR website. I happened to see a federal resume class, and I signed up for it. So that way, one, I could understand what needs to go into the resumes and things like that.
Okay.
And the VA process, he had no idea of anything. He didn't know when his appointment was coming. Um, his Pueblo at the time, just I think he said he did an initial intake with him, and that was the last time that he heard from him. And I remember it was shortly before I left. He was like, "Hey, I got a VA appointment, but it was scheduled almost like 2 months ago." I had no idea where to even find, like, where it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh yeah, I actually happened to overhear it from somebody else through an app. You can check it on an app, a VA app." And that's how I keep track of my stuff. So I showed him that, and he was like, "Man, if I didn't know this, I would have missed my the first general appointment for the VA, and that would have been terrible." To try to reschedule that justification. I mean, what are you going to say?
Ooh.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh well, too bad, man. You missed movement on that. We'll get you later at another 8 months down the road or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't think that information's getting out there, and I hate to present a problem without a course of action. But I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to get the message out there of these resources that are available to us down to the lowest level. I don't find at fault the leadership, because I know, like, they get the emails, and you can easily just forward it out. But at the same time, being in their shoes and seeing their level, that's not your priority, is to forward out these emails of, hey, there's this transitioning working group getting happening next week. Who wants to go? It's, hey, I need you for go pick up ammo or something like that. I need somebody to go fill out the AHA for gate guard or something. That's what their priority is. And the communication, it's just not there. And I'm going to be honest, like I said, I don't know how to fix it. Of course, if I did, I would be all over it. But
No, you're absolutely right, man. Because no one's lining up for when everyone gets out of the military and they say, here's a welcome kit, or like, here's a kit, a starter kit to get out. You get all these programs offered. Like you said, it's just not getting disseminated. There's plenty of stuff, plenty of people, organizations that want to help veterans, but it's like, you're right. It's just all the information's all over the place, and it's kind of like up to everyone for themselves to figure it out, man. So it seems, but you're absolutely right, dude. Because like, even when I did contracting, I was like passionate to help veterans, because I was like, man, no one was there when I got out. And you just want to talk to people about getting out the military, because even if you do 30 years, you're still getting out, right? I mean, as long as you're alive, you're going to get out of the military one day and transition to Michael or Robert or whatever, Joe Schmo, dude. Like, they don't want you to talk. Seemed like it's like you're doing them this burden, because they want everyone to re-enlist, right? They want everyone to keep going so they can do the AHA, the ammo guard, the KP and stuff like that, because they got to meet quota. It's a business, it's a numbers, But man, you're right, dude. Why not just be open, even transparent? Even at Carson, I got out there, I did the ACAP. They barely have anyone come in and talk to you about, hey, make sure you go do this, make sure you go do that. It's just like, hey, get your resume, looked at, go clear CIF, go clear post housing. But it's not like they don't give you a welcome to civilianhood. Here's a whole packet of what's to offer for veterans. But maybe we could create something like that and just get everyone under the same umbrella and have everyone pushed out there. Because I don't really know who does that, but you do make a good point on that, man. The problem's not getting solved.
Yeah, definitely. When I went through TAP, I don't think I went physically. I didn't go to any type of classroom or anything like that. They looked at my rank and said, "You're good. Like you're
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah.
You can take all these classes through Blackboard or something like that." Just
If you want to, just
yeah,
sign up if you want or something like
yeah.
that.
There was a couple that were mandatory, like financial briefings and stuff like that. But I could do it all online and just shoot the TAP specialist my certification once I was complete, and then they would give me my TAP certification that I was done. And it probably took me about 2 days to get everything done. And I know that if I was on the other side and I wasn't going through the SRU portion, a lot of that information I would have just breezed over because one, that's what we're used to, just next, 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 next. And, nobody's kind of highlighting those to us as senior leaders, saying this is what you need to pay attention to. Here's the answers to the test when you get out. And I'm also hearing kind of like a lot of the briefs are boring. They're just not informative. They're telling you things that you already know, just kind of repeating the same things over and over again. Um, there's nothing new that's being brought up, nothing interesting. Um, but I can't hit it enough that there are just so many different resources out there for us that we just don't know about. Um,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the best way to learn is to talk, network, talk, like do research, talk to someone like you or I that, gone through the process to get out. So you don't have to learn, you don't have to take 5 years or something like that to learn how to do something. You can know it already from the mistakes that I made or the information that you didn't know or the information that you learned in that unit that you can, that you're shelling out right now that can help somebody. So you're right, man. We just got to keep helping each other and help ourselves. What so after you decided that you're going to go to the veteran track, did you have a plan on getting out the military and stuff like that? Did you sit down with your family or with yourself and devise a plan to figure out what's going to look like once you get done?
um, I was extremely privileged. I think supportive. I had that that definitely helped me out. But at the same time, it was definitely something that I didn't want to make a decision for from our entire family at the same time. But getting out job wise, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Of course, as soon as I developed a resume and kind of just threw it out there, the first thing that we all get is contracting with some type of um, relations that you are connected with in the military. So I was getting job offers for artillery, engineering, all that type of stuff. And I didn't know if I wanted to continue to do that when I got out. I've always heard negative things about contracting. Um, and I think that's opinion based for that. But once I kind of started seeing things and that I realized that I was going to get out, I shot for, I think I wanted to do more desk job type things, even though I didn't want to. Um, and so I had experience with EEO. I was
Okay.
I was a program manager at Fort Sill for a couple years, and I really enjoyed it. And I was just like, how do I dig into this career field? So I started, and I just went up to the office for the EEO, and I said, "What do y'all have?" And it was actually through an organization called Operation Warfighter, where they take transitioning service members and give them internships and things like that. So I was able to work as an intern while I was getting out, to expand my knowledge of the kind of EO process, in the federal sector. So that way, hopefully, I could get a job once I got out.
How'd you like the internship?
I loved it. The people up there were awesome. They were all retired first sergeants,
Okay.
pretty most of them pretty recently, and they sat me down on day one and said, we're gonna have two responsibilities for you. One, you need to work on your transition out of the military, and two, we're going to teach you the job. And so that's exactly what we focused on, for me as an individual, learning the job and then giving their own opinions about things that you need to do to get out, to be successful, to transition. And again, I was very luckily that I fell in on a great group up there as well.
Hey, that's awesome to hear, man. I mean, better that than fall by the wayside with, struggling. So that's awesome, dude. What was the one thing that helped you the most with your mental health struggles? Or like, it doesn't have to be the one thing, but what were some things or one thing that helped you with your mental health struggles on your transition out?
I would say being selfish, honestly. Taking care of others, your subordinates, was always the first and foremost in your mind when you're in the military, as a senior NCO. And once I kind of had the vision of that I was going to get out, I started taking care of myself. I was going to the gym, working out and all that stuff, but it was because I had to. Once I started going for myself, I started feeling better mentally. I started getting into, if you would have asked me a year ago, but I got into arts and crafts, putting together little models of like tanks, artillery pieces and things like that. And I started doing that, and that definitely helped me out mentally, just to kind of get out and do something. Start researching. When I was doing these models, I was maybe looking for a vehicle that was part of our rolling stock that we had at Fort Carson, so I could, paint a bumper number on there that was related to something that was close to me. And once I started doing that, my mental health started to improve. It wasn't the best, but it started to improve.
Do you still do the models now, or you took a break from them?
No, I'm still doing them.
Okay.
I've got so many now at this point. I've spent a good chunk of money on it. I'm not going to lie. It is pretty expensive. Once you get into it. But it was something that definitely helped me out. It was something I connected with. I enjoyed it. Again, if you were to ask me about a year ago, I probably would have punched you in the face. You're going to be doing arts and crafts here in a year. I'd have disagreed with you. It helped me out.
No, that's cool, man. That's the first time I've heard someone mention that, which is interesting because, even when I color with my son or, do like painting, it's kind of like a therapy in itself. If you just kind of disconnect, take away from your cell phone or all the other distractions and just like let your mind go, man. So interesting ideas. If you look back and you could tell yourself something, or the soldiers that are still in, or for the veterans or the military members that are out there right now, what would you tell them on the whole process of just getting out of the military? What would be your message to them?
Even if you're thinking about transitioning out, start the process. Start getting ready. Start going to resume classes. Medical wise, start getting things looked at. Don't don't be the guy who's always going to sick call and things like that. But if something's hurting, get in there and get it looked at, get it documented. Because if it's not, like you said, they're just going to brush over it, and it's not a pattern. That's what I tell everybody. There has to be a pattern, just like when there's bad things, when you're going for a UCMJ or Article 15, there needs to be a pattern of misconduct, and it's the same thing that for medical wise, it has to be a pattern.
Dude, I always tell people that same thing. I talk about like chapter UCMJ or chaptering out a soldier, right? You always have to have that counseling packet, all that paper trail, right? It's no different for yourself in the medical field. It's even more important than anything. If you're going to put a paper trail on another person, okay, like, I mean, even if you're NCO, you got to do 4856 every month, right? Every month, when you get a new soldier, you're supposed to be giving them a counsel statement unless things have changed. But I mean, you got to make sure you do that for yourself too, because no one else is going to do it. No one else is putting medical paperwork in for you. So absolutely, dude. Great. I mean, I'm glad that you said that, because it's literally the same thing I always tell people. So it's cool to hear someone else say it in the same manner, because we all were there, man. We all had to do counseling paperwork. We all had to do counseling packets. So it's like, but they don't say, hey, make sure you get your medical record straight. Everyone's making sure they have a small medical record because no one wanted to go to sick call, right? Like, like, yo, I don't want to, I'm not going. Got to miss PT, gonna do this, got to do this. Like, yeah, man. So great point. What's your favorite food at Fort Carson, man? On base, or what was your favorite military food you've had in your career anywhere? And then what's your favorite restaurant at Fort Carson outside?
So the best chow ha I've actually ever had, honestly, was in basic training at Fort Sill.
Okay.
That was the best chow ha I'd ever had. When we go to Carson, I actually know the defect manager out at Ivy.
Okay.
And then I think he transferred over to Warhorse. But I liked Ivy, the defect out there. Everybody hated that one, but I actually liked it. But outside restaurants, oh man, I liked El Super Taco.
El Super Taco, man. Yeah, that right out there off. What was it like? I forget the name of them streets. I don't know. It's not that far from the base, but they got good Mexican food out there, man.
Yeah.
What would you describe your military service in one word? What would you say it would be?
Interesting.
All right. And if you could, what was your favorite place that you visited on orders?
I would say, honestly, Fort Carson.
Fort Carson?
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad there, man. Nice.
It's different. Even if you just travel, just 10, 15 minutes outside of Colorado Springs, you got different surrounding communities. I mean, you got Manitou Springs that's right there. If you're a hippie, you're going to love it out there.
Yeah.
If you're real kind of country, you can go just north is Peyton,
okay,
Colorado. And that's kind of country out there. So I think that whole community out there, it's for everybody.
You ever done the incline out there?
Multiple times.
Any time for PT? Did you guys ever have to go out there and do it?
Yes. Back, 2007, 2008, it was probably a regular PT event until I think one of the CGs made it off limits during PT hours. That you couldn't do off post PT.
They used to be not there in Garden of the Gods, man. But they used to go to Manitou Springs. They go to the incline, make all the people on remedial PT go. They'd be like, "Yo, I'm not about to be on this no more."
Yeah.
But hey, one more thing for you. You got anyone that we can like do a challenge call to action? Anyone that you maybe know that you could call out on here? We share the video with them and see if they come on here and share their story.
Yes, I do. I would say somebody from the EEO office that I was doing an internship up there. His name is Mr. Reese, Antoine Reese. He goes by
Okay.
Otis. But he he's a retired first sergeant, and he's worked at the VA. And when he got out, he was just as confused as probably I was, as well as you. Didn't know
Yeah.
what he wanted to do, and he went through a couple of different jobs and found something that he loved to do as an EEO specialist. Um, and it's not about being like the woke type person or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just being respectful and just being a human, and that's what he brought. And
Okay.
and
What'd
I
you say it goes by again? He goes by
he goes by Otis, but his name is
Otis.
Antoine Reese.
Okay. All right, Otis, man. I hope to see you on here, bro. Hey, you have anything else, Robert?
No, I appreciate it. I hope that somebody learned something. I'm definitely out here. I'm on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. If anybody has any questions, definitely shoot me a text and let me know.
All right. Hey, Robert. Hey, appreciate you sharing your story, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, listening to you, your ups and downs. I'm glad that you got the help that you deserve and that you needed, and you weren't ashamed to ask. And, it's been a pleasure connecting with you. Thanks for sharing your story. And if you ever need anything, let's keep in touch, bro.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. No problem. Thank you. Everyone, thanks for listening in. Until next time, y'all have a blessed day.